Today we want to talk about the 5 habits of clients that actually see results and, go into a little bit more depth about them. It's quite similar to the previous episode we did where we did client success stories. And when we dove into depth a little bit more about each client, we realized there was a few big umbrellas that all of those clients fit underneath.
Yeah.
So very keen to touch base on those today.
Yeah, and that way you guys know exactly what you need to be doing to make sure you get results, whether you're with a coach or not. Before we get into this, though, I really need to address the elephant in the room.
What is
that Roberta took 6 attempts to get the intro right. I hope we can insert them. Can we insert them here?
Yuck, no. I'm put together and I came up with it nicely. I don't want them to believe.
No, this is where we're inserting all of those here. That would be funny. They'd be like, today we're. Yeah. Yeah, literally, that's what you do.
I don't know why I did that.
Okay. Anyway, we're getting distracted. But so what we're going to do, we've written a couple down. We'll go one for one and we'll just talk about each of these qualities that people have that see results so that you understand what you need to be doing to also see results in your journey. The first one is that people aren't rushing to the finish line. So what we've written here is that they're not thinking about the fastest way to get there. They're instead thinking, what do I need to do to get there so that they can make progress over time? And this is one of the biggest things we notice between clients who see results and clients who don't. The ones that do are the ones that understand that this is more of a long-term thing. They're not rushing. They're not trying to do everything that they can to get there tomorrow. They're not trying to be perfect. They're understanding instead that, hey, this is going to be a journey and I'm going to learn a lot along the way. I'm probably going to fall on my face a few times as well. But what can I do? What's the next best decision I can make? And how can I make progress towards the goal, even if, the end result doesn't come for another 6 months?
Yeah. One thing I feel like I don't think we've spoken about too much is we touch base on why, it's important to think this way. But I think we need to also touch base on why it's important to not think the other way, because the thing is, we don't want people to not see results fast. That's not the point.
No.
The point is, the setbacks that come from going into it with the mindset of, hey, how much fat can I lose in 8 weeks? Like, what can I do this? Or if not, I'm not interested then. It's like the reason why, there's multiple reasons why, you need to take into account your previous history, previous dieting history that's going to affect your ability to see results at a specific rate. The fact that, is it realistic to be able to see the results that you're wanting to see in that specific time frame? Have you done the work beforehand to get you to the point that you can see those results in that time frame? And also, let's just say you want to lose a specific amount in a specific amount of weeks. When you get to the end, let's just say you want to lose X amount in 8 weeks. When you get to week 8, let's say you've done really strict dieting. Let's say you have stayed consistent with it. When you get to the end, have you built realistic long-term habits that are going to allow you to keep that later on?
Yeah, no, you're not, because you're going to sit there thinking you have to continue to do what you just did in order to keep the results. And this is where people get into restrictive cycles of oh yeah, I've cut out carbs, or I am only eating 1,200 calories a day, or whatever, or I'm exercising 12 times a week. It's because that's what they did to get the initial result. So they think they have to keep doing it to keep the result or to continue to make progress. And that's where, even if you do that and you're able to stick to it for 8 weeks, I guarantee you won't be able to stick to it for 2 years. And that's the biggest thing. The other thing with rushing is what you've mentioned before. You don't build the habits in time. Habits take a while to form. And when you don't build the habits, then trying to stay on top of them is really difficult. You become closed-minded on, being able to understand and navigate setbacks. So when a setback happens, instead of being in a position where you can just work through it, you use that generally as a reason to go all or nothing. And the people who rush are the ones that do go all or nothing. And this is why we say this, and why we say put a bit more emphasis on not rushing and be able to have time before you get there, because these things that you're going to learn and implement along the way are actually more important than the end result, because they're the things that you learn on how to keep them.
Yeah, so that's why I just want to preface that. I feel like a lot of coaches do say all of this stuff as well, but I think it becomes kind of like background noise when you're so head set on reaching a specific goal that you're like, nah, I'll be the outlier. I'll be the one that can do all of this stuff and I'll be fine. But we've seen it put in practice before. So it's more so we just want you to have a really sustainable approach to things so that way you can actually get to where you want and keep it and enjoy it along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. I'm happy with that point. Next habit that we see is that clients don't leave when things get hard, because things are going to get hard. It's not an easy journey to get to where you want to be. Otherwise, I guess everyone would be where they want to be. And doing things, and it requires discipline, and it requires a level of patience as well. And a lot of the time, once, you know, the initial motivation wears off in the beginning of like being really excited to see your goal and getting yourself there, once that wears off, it's really easy to fall back into old habits, because our brain seeks comfort and it wants to go back to the things that were easy to do before.
Yeah.
So rather than falling off of the bandwagon entirely, like the clients that do see these results, they either stay consistent, or they actually have a conversation with their coach, or, you know, I guess themselves if they're doing it on their own. But in our case, they have a conversation with us and say, oh, like, hey, I'm not going to lie, I'm struggling here. Great, let's have a conversation about it. What can we do to support you? What can we do to maybe even change some of the things that we're doing to make this feel more manageable?
Yeah, so let's actually talk about struggle, because you've just kind of sparked something in my brain. Everything you said here is absolutely correct. However, what we need to be mindful of is that people have this like big emphasis on the fact that struggle is bad. And what I also think is that when we think we're struggling, we think there's something wrong. And when we think there's something wrong, we generally feel really negative about it. There's actually nothing wrong with struggling, and there's nothing wrong with struggling in your journey, but there is something wrong with utilizing the struggle you're facing right now as the reason you don't reach your goals in 3 months. And I would really like everyone to walk away from today just thinking about how you actually respond to struggle. Because if you are going through a journey, and as Roberta said here, you know, when things get hard and you are struggling, you kind of give up, I would be questioning, like, why is that? Why is that happening? And what do you usually do when you feel like you're starting to struggle? Because this pattern that you have around your idea of things being hard could tell you a lot about your life. Because generally, like, what you do in one area, you do in multiple areas. So it's like, okay, well, if you deem something as hard and then you stop showing up in your fitness, are you also doing that in your career? Are you also doing that in your family life? Where else are you doing that? And becoming aware of that pattern will also help you understand that, like, it is just about breaking things down into bite-sized pieces and leaning on help for support.
I like that. I actually think that's really interesting.
Yeah, well, just think about it. Like, I even think sometimes for myself, I'm like, I'm really struggling with this. Like, why am I struggling? You know? And I just think, like, if you just have a bit of a think about that for a second, it might bring you up an aha moment.
Yeah. I just thought, I don't know, I had a little think. I was like, oh yeah, where else am I struggling? Where does this carry on? But I like the point of, like, I guess it's like self-entitlement, but I think, like you've said before, like, people want things yesterday, so they don't like the idea of struggling and feeling discomfort, but it's going to be uncomfortable because you need to get somewhere. So it requires effort. So like, for example, fat loss, it requires, you know, being in a deficit, which is challenging. You're going to be hungry. So when people are like, oh, I don't actually like being hungry, I'd rather just, you know, I think it's not for me. Well, like, you're going to probably likely going to end up doing that anyway later on. Wouldn't you rather, you know, learn the habits and do the hard work once, do it properly, and then allow yourself to enjoy it afterwards?
Yeah, because what happens is people fall into the comfort zone of like, no, it's not for me, blah, blah, blah. I don't even care that much, or I don't want to do it, or whatever. And then they go back into their old habits. And then a week later, they're like, oh, but I do want to diet. And then there's this like back and forth kind of yo-yo thing that happens. But I think it just comes back to, like, the word struggle, you instantly put a negative connotation to it. Can we start to look at the word struggle as something that you acknowledge and something that you maybe notice, rather than something that you have to put a negative connotation to? Because people are going to struggle in their journeys. But if we can acknowledge that struggle without having to make it mean that it's bad or that you shouldn't be or that it's hard, would that not just change the way that you perceive your fitness? I think it would. But I feel like it also takes someone who's really self-aware to view it like that.
Yeah.
Next one we have here is they don't miss check-ins. Now, when we're talking about we don't miss check-ins, it's not just about if you're working with a coach, but it's also like if you're working on your own, you continue to track your progress. And if you don't continue to track your progress, that's the difference we see between people who reach their goals or not. first of all, when we look at check-ins or we look at progress, which for those of you who don't know, a check-in is literally just where you update your progress for your coach so that your coach can see where you're at. But if you're doing this yourself, you would just do it yourself. But when it comes to your progress, the reason that people who track their progress see results is because they actually are tracking the things that move the needle, and then they know if they need to make an adjustment or not, versus people who think they're tracking their progress or aren't tracking their progress, and then every single day their emotional state's kind of up and down, and the progress tracking, if you will, is like how I feel on the day. And that can be so detrimental for your goals, because if one day you feel really good, you're like, yep, I'm good, I'm on track. The next day you feel really shit or you have a bad day, you're literally like bouncing your progress off your emotions. The other thing is too, though, for those who only track their scale weight, that's not really tracking progress, because that's the same sort of thing. One day it's going to be up, the next day it's going to be down, and that's going to send you on a wild goose chase around whether you're making progress or not. But the ones who do their check-ins in coaching are the ones who see progress, the ones that don't miss their check-ins. And alongside that, I love the note you've written here too, which is even when they're not perfect, like even if your progress isn't perfect, even if you haven't had a perfect week, which 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have a perfect week anyway. Even if you've had a day off your nutrition, or you've missed some training sessions, or you've gotten sick, or you got your period, or whatever happened, something's gone wrong, and you still track your progress or do your check-in anyway. And I think that's so important, because it shows that people are willing to show up and showcase what they've done well in the week, but also acknowledge what they maybe could improve on, rather than just like disregarding it altogether and pretending it doesn't exist.
Yeah, because you don't want to pretend that the data doesn't exist. Just because it doesn't exist on paper, it doesn't mean it's not there. So it's important to track it, see it from an objective perspective, and be able to zoom out. And I think it's also nice when you do check in and have all these entries, because when you do take a look back, let's just say over a year, you've done, let's just say 52 check-ins, right? Out of those, there'll be likely a few where you genuinely just probably didn't feel good. Something may have happened in your life. Let's just say you went through, I don't know, a breakup, or something happened in the family. Like, you're going to see these little hiccups, right, in your data, and it's going to happen. It's inevitable for that to happen. But what's nice is that when you look at it from a big perspective, you can see that you actually came out of it. And then, there may have been something else, but you came out of that too. And not only that, you're actually where you want to be anyway. So it just shows you, it's just constant proof that even these little dips in data and things like that, it's still going to get you to a point. You're going to get to some point anyway. You may as well get it to a point that you want to get to.
Oh, that's such a good point. I love that. Yeah.
That was meant to be a mic drop, and it was a click.
Was that a click?
I don't know what it was. It was something. I said something good.
Oh yeah, you said something real good, but then you fucked it up with the little click that you did, which I don't even think you could hear on camera. I'm pretty sure it was like air that you just snapped. Anyway, moving on.
Next habit.
Oh, am I reading the next point?
Oh, we will say the next point. There's another point.
Sorry, I got
There is another point to it. But yeah, this one is just, it's very similar, but it's kind of like an all or nothing approach is so common, especially when it comes to, I think, fat loss and any sort of body composition goal, because we're so harsh on ourselves and we're our biggest critics. So having that all or nothing means that, you know, if you feel like you didn't perform the way that you wanted to, it means that you're not going to get the outcome you want, so you may as well give up entirely.
Yeah, and that's just like, as you said before, it's when you did your mic drop. It's literally like, it's one of those things where you can give up if you choose to, but then how long before you want to get back to where you were? How long before you want to restart? How long before, you know, like you're sick of where you're at and then try again? And it's like, every time you give up is a step back. Every time you don't give up, but you have a little hiccup, as you say, and keep going, it's actually a step in the right direction. It'll build that resilience. And that way, if you are going through a period where you don't feel like it, you're not motivated, you are a bit all or nothing, it's remembering, and it keeps aligning you back to like why you're doing this in the first place. So taking us to the next point, which is they take feedback without getting defensive and they actually apply it. So this one is really important, because there's 2 types of people that we've worked with in our service. There's the type of person who takes the feedback on board, even if it's not the feedback they like, they cop it on the chin, they understand that we're only doing what we're doing to make them better. They go, they apply, and if they start to struggle, they let us know so we can actually work together. Because something I always say in coaching is like, it's not we say you do, it's a collaborative approach where the 2 of us need to work together to get you to your goals. Versus the client that we work with who does get defensive. and who decides that they know what they're doing and that they are going to do their own thing and that it's too hard and that they're not willing, and they just get to a point where we actually can't help them because they're not being coachable. And the thing is, like, if you're not being coachable, if you're getting defensive, if you're doing your own thing, not listening to your coach, you cannot expect to get anywhere, because you got to think back to the reason you started coaching in the first place. And the reason you started coaching in the first place is because you recognized that you didn't know what you were doing and you needed help. So like, let your coach help you. We're only here to help. We're here to give you the best experience, to guide you in the right direction, and to make sure that you get there. And you have to remember, your coach and you need to be on the same team. And if you're playing on two different teams, then you're actually opposing each other, and then you're going to have these back and forths and you're never going to get anywhere. So the ones that we see always excel and do really well are the ones that are willing to take on the feedback, are willing to open communication and apply the feedback. Now, if you're not in coaching, how this would relate to you is, again, kind of learning for yourself, like, what are the things that you need to work on? And rather than telling yourself stories about it's too hard, or I can't do it, or this came up or that came up, and making excuses. Or on the other hand, if you're somebody who is recognizing your patterns, it's like, be honest with yourself, and be so honest with yourself that you're willing to make those changes and be okay with not being perfect, and just to continue to move in the right direction anyway. Because if you tell yourself stories, if you make up excuses, and if you sit in a position where you aren't honest and truthful to yourself, that's also going to hold you back from making the progress that you really need to make to get to where you want to be.
Now, I have just thought of another point that I do want to add on, and it's another habit that we see clients who see results carry through, and that is the fact that it's similar to the all or nothing, but it's that they are consistent even when they don't feel like it, or when they don't feel motivated, and even if they show up for themselves, even if it's not perfect. So how that looks, right, is, let's just say they went out on the weekend, they didn't follow through on what they said they were going to follow through. It means that the next day they don't completely disregard everything and think that, oh, I guess I stuffed up yesterday, I won't do it today as well. They'll just be like, okay, yes, I'm not feeling my best today. I'm still going to get my session done, but I might just pull back here, or I might just pull back on the training intensity, or they'll find any other solution to it, or they'll just do it anyway.
Yeah. I think this is a hard one because, like, if you're so set in your ways and you only know all or nothing, you have to train it out of yourself over time. Like, it's really hard to do. And this is why, if you know you're all or nothing, I'm telling you now, if you're all or nothing and you're not getting support, you're going to be all or nothing forever. And this is coming from somebody who has been all or nothing and knows what it's like. So I can speak from experience, but also from, like, the experience of myself and my own journey, but then the experience of, like, being a coach and also seeing it in other people. You need help. You need to be able to learn skills you don't have. You need to be able to learn habits you don't have. You need to be able to lean on someone, and someone to reassure you when you are stressing and feeling like you have to be all or nothing. Because in my experience from all or nothing, what I've remembered is that it feels scary to do anything but being all in. And then when you're all out, you kind of go into this, like, negative headspace of, what's the point? I stuffed up, I'll start again. And that's really hard to get out of. So your point is correct. Like, they do things when they don't feel like it. They do it anyway. If they've had a bad day, they'll just show up the next day. But I also want to recognize that if that is something, because it's easier said than done, if that's something that is really hard for you, get help with it. Don't sit there and expect that it's just going to change overnight, because it's not. And I guarantee you, when you get somebody like a coach to help you, at that point is when you'll notice the change that you're after, and you'll be able to implement something like that. But I think for us, in terms of what we see, the people in our service who can't do that, they're always willing to try. And at the point of when they get help with us is when we notice that those things start to shift, which is cool.
Yeah, it's always about taking things in bite-sized pieces, and it's like approaching things however's best for you, but just being open to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So they are the 5 or 6 now habits that we see that people who are successful in their journeys have. And out of all of these today, if there's any that you know aren't you, at least you know what you now need to work on. I would definitely go away from this episode and, like, really sit down and think about, what am I doing really well from these habits? Are there any that I need to work on and improve on? And then you guys can always shoot us a message and ask for some help or advice if you're ever getting a little bit stuck as well.